Today, I'm going to be taking a look at some of the best counters to some of the strongest cores in Regulation H. Now, to kick things off, we will be talking about what is one of, in my opinion, the best cores in the game, right? And this is the Maushold plus Annihilape shenanigans, right? So everyone kind of knows what Maushold does at this point, right? This guy, he comes in, he clicks beat up, and then Annihilate, he has this beautiful move called Rage Fist, right? Maushold, he's also got the Friend Guard next to the ape, making it very bulky. And this is just naturally a pretty damn tanky Pokemon, right? So, the gist of it is, you have Follow Me, right? You got Follow Me, you got Beat Up. Normally, you go for things like Super Fang and then, like, Protect, yeah? On the Annihilate side of things, you got Drain Punch, you got Bulk Up, and then you just go Protect as well. You go for things like Safety Goggles here to protect you, Annihilate from the Amoonguss. Like, Terra Ghost is pretty good as well into opposing fighting types. And then Annihilate goes for something like Leftovers, Citrus Berry, something along those lines to give it a bit of extra health. And then you go Defiant, so that Pokemon like Incineroar basically can't, Intimidate spam you. And right now, the common set is Terrifier. So, without a doubt, one of the scariest combos in the game, right? You beat up the Annihilate, you give him +4 stacks on the Rage Fist. All of a sudden, the Rage Fist is, a 250 base power attack. Coming off a pretty solid attack stat. A lot of the time, people will run something like this. And yeah, as you can see, this is like a pretty decent attack stat for potentially, a 250 base power move. And then on top of that as well, you have Bulk Up, right, to give you that +1 to your attack stat, making it incredibly hard to deal with. So, what are the best answers to this team? Well, one of the biggest things is redirection, in my opinion, right? Now, one of the biggest issues, I think, is a Pokemon like Amoonguss is not necessarily good into this core because you cannot redirect the Maushold because of Safety Goggles, right? So, Safety Goggles basically gives you an immunity to powder moves. Rage Powder is a powder move. Therefore, you can't redirect it. Therefore, the Annihilate can still get set up by the Maushold. But Maushold cannot avoid the Follow Me redirection. Follow Me. And because of that, there are a few Pokemon here that I think are actually pretty damn good into this combo. The main ones really are Clefable. I think Indeedee Female is also fantastic. Your own Maushold is also really good. And then really all three of these here as well, Clef, Electabuzz, and Magma, are all very good redirection Pokemon into this core. Essentially, the reason why, in my opinion, this is so good is just because you just keep your partner safe, while at the same time, they also can't set up their Annihilate. To me, that is really, really important. Like, I think Clefable right now is an incredibly underrated redirection mod. It's something we'll talk about later on in the video as well. But even Pokemon like Magma, having, the potential of just Flame Body, right? Just redirecting them both in. Potential to burn both of them is definitely really good. Same with Magma, right? Even with Vital Spirit. These are Pokemon that, with the Vital Spirit ability, they are also really good redirection into Pokemon like Amoonguss as well. So it also doubles for that. And again, Pokemon like Maushold and Clefairy, both have Friend Guard as well, which is, again, just a fantastic option for redirection. Indeed, he also sets up Psychic Terrain. Clefable's main thing is Unaware. So these are all just really good redirection Pokemon. And Pokemon, I think, that are all really good into this combo, right? Especially Pokemon like Clefable, right? Because Clefable has the option of just potentially throwing a really strong Stab Moonblast into the Annihilate, which does make things pretty difficult. Same with Pokemon like Indeedee, right? Indeedee can just say, hey, maybe I'm just going to throw off a Psychic into you. Same with Buzz, right? Buzz can, go for things like, Electro Web as well to give you a bit of speed control. Obviously, it does proc Defiant, but it could also be really clutch to enable one of your, your sweepers to potentially outspeed the Maushold and pick up a KO on it. And normally when I pair, one of these Pokemon, because I do love having one of them on my team, especially Electabuzz, which is one I've been testing recently, I like pairing it with really strong Stab. Now, there are really strong Spread, I meant to say. There are two Pokemon in particular that come to my mind, and that's Goldengo and Primarina. Now, the reason I like both of these is pretty simple. Goldengo with, like, things like Choice Specs, Metal Coat, basically just has the ability to just pick up a one-shot on the Maushold if they aren't Focus Sash, which is really good at putting pressure on it. And it also forces out the Terra onto Annihilate, which is a big thing, right? Obviously, Annihilate in front of a Goldengo, he doesn't want to eat the Choice Specs, make it rain. So he's going to go Terrifier to reduce the damage. But at that point, if you are able to get the Terrifier out of them, it does set up for something in the back, which is what we'll also touch on in a second. But Primarina, for that exact reason, I also really like into it. Primarina has two stab moves that basically always run right. One is Moonblast, the other is Hyper Voice. The reason you run Hyper Voice is because of your ability, Liquid Voice, basically, turning all your sound-based moves into water-type attacks. So yeah, that makes, Hyper Voice a spread water-type move. You have Moonblast to potentially bait out the Terrifier on the Annihilate, and then you have Hyper Voice to deal massive damage to it. Not to mention as well, it is also a Haze user, which is really good if, Annihilate just starts clicking a lot of, Bulk Ups, right? You sit there spamming Bulk Up, Primarina can come in and say, hey, I'm just going to Haze you off, you've lost your stat buffs. So I do really enjoy that. But there is one other Pokemon I really enjoy here as well, because a lot of the time these Pokemon do, bait Terrifier out of the Annihilate. And that's where our good friend Aqua Breed Tauros comes into play. Now, obviously, Tauros here does have the Intimidate, but the beauty of Mirror Herb right now, with a lot of Pokemon like Annihilate, King Gambit, and all that running around, with the Mirror Herb, basically, you give them +1 attack, but you copy the +2 that you steal off them, right? And then with stab moves like Wave Crash on close combat, if you are able to force the Terra out of the Annihilate, all of a sudden a +2 close combat is going to deal a lot of damage, and a +2 Wave Crash will almost always just kill, especially if they are something like Terra Fire. But yeah, basically that paired up with the fact that this Pokemon likes just running Jolly Max with Pokemon like the Hydreigans, all of a sudden, you just have basically a one-shot nuke. It's very, very good into the Annihilate. You also love the fact that you can run Mirror Herb into it. And yeah, I think these are just some of the best counters I've found into Annihilate. I definitely think Redirection is the best way to go about it, at least follow me. And then having things like Primarina and Golden Go, two of the staples of the format right now, are both also pretty solid into it. So the next core I want to talk about here is probably the best core right now. It's the core that's probably had the most success in a lot of tournaments, and that is Pelipper plus Archaludon Rain. Now, there are a lot of other Pokemon that do come into this core, right? Things like Amoonguss, Basculin Legion, Incin, all that. But for the most part, we're just going to be focusing on these two today. Basically, Pelipper's thing is they like to just go like Focus Sash, Drizzle, and then they just like Hurricane, Weather Ball, and then they just essentially, protect, Tailwind, Wide Guard, whatever you want in those last two slots. And they kind of just run max like this, right? Terra can be like Ghost, Terra Stella, something along those lines. And then for the Archaludon, it's normally like Assault Vest. These days, everyone's kind of going Terra Grass. And then you're looking at things like Electro Shot. You're looking at like Draco Meteor, Dragon Pulse. You're looking at Body Press. And then probably something like Flash Cannon, right? Very, very strong duo, especially if this guy here does have Tailwind. Basically, you set up the rain for your Archaludon can start just firing off massive Electro Shots. And this Pokemon, even with like very minimal investment, a lot of the time you'll see something like this. This is like a pretty standard EV set, I'd say, on it. Something like, yes, something like this, I think, is what I was personally running. Something like that. If you want an EV spread, that's what I was running, at least on Tailwind. But yeah, it's very, very good. It can really snowball out of control, and Archaludon becomes incredibly hard to KO, especially thanks to its ability Stamina. And again, if you start giving it, a couple pluses to this defensive stat, which is also insanely good already, these body presses start doing ridiculous amounts of damage. Even to resist, it deals, pretty absurd amounts of damage. So what are our counters? I kind of touched on one before, but I'm a huge fan of Electabuzz into this matchup. A big reason for that is because it kind of doesn't matter what you put next to the Electabuzz. It's really good into Pelipper, right? Because thanks to its ability, move here, Electro Web, and also having a really solid speed stat, you can basically always outspeed the Pelipper, use Electro Web, drop it to its Sash, and then at that point, any partner you have will be able to pick up a KO onto the Pelipper. Not to mention, you're also pretty good at redirecting things like Electro Shot and Flash Cannon. With Terra as well, you can always redirect things like Draco Meteor and Body Press as well and be pretty good. I do think Fairy is pretty good into Archaludon. I'm also a big fan of things like Ghost and Terra Dragon as well, both of which I think are pretty solid. And again, it also counts as like a redirection bot into this where, one, you're pretty good into, these two here, but again, they love playing with Amoonguss, and having, Vital Spirit plus redirection into Amoonguss is just amazing. It basically just completely shuts down the Amoonguss, can't heal up its allies, it also, can't put anything to sleep, so fantastic because of that. Some of the other partners I personally love, I did do a video on it yesterday. If you guys haven't checked it out, go look at it, please. I did a team building guide where I built around Decidueye and Electabuzz. But yeah, these two Pokemon here in particular are very, very good into them, in my opinion. One, obviously, with Electro Web, it allows the Hisuian Decidueye to outspeed the Pelipper and pick up a KO on it. But two, this guy right here is a Steel type that is very good at buffing up his defensive stat. Decidueye here is it's a fighting type, with Scrappy, so it can't get intimidated, and it has this little broken move called Triple Arrows. It's a high crit move. It has a 50% chance to drop your defense by 1 stat and a 30% chance to flinch. So when you pair that with something like Scope Lens, basically you have a 50% chance to crit this move, and it's also a super effective attack. So as long as you get the crit, doesn't really matter. Archaludon is taking way too much damage. A lot of the time it is a roll to kill the Archaludon, but realistically, if you can get 1 crit and deal like 90% to this Bond, all of a sudden you've just ended its game, right? Because this is a Pokemon that wants to be on the board, it wants to be spamming Electro Shots, it wants to get its stamina procs up, and it wants to click Body Press. And something like Hisuian Decidueye just getting a crit on the Triple Arrow basically neuters this Mon, right? And again, crits are another really good way to deal with this. Another really good one is Hydreigon. Now, Hydreigon does need a little bit more support because a lot of the time they want to go for things like Scope Lens plus Focus Energy. But if you get to a position where you are able to set this up, all of a sudden the Draco Meteors are just like one-shotting it, right? You are just running through it with this move, man. Like, you deal so much damage with like a crit Draco Meteor off like this special attack stat. It's pretty insane. So yeah, that's another really good way to deal with it. And then I guess the other ways as well I like, Pokemon like Primarina, it isn't necessarily a great example, but Haze is like really the move I'm referring to here. Again, we see some Decidueyes running Haze, we see Primarina's running it, we also see Pokemon like Murkrow running it. Milotic is another really good carrier of Haze as well. So yeah, there's quite a few good Pokemon here. Obviously you can go down the list and have a look at them. But yeah, I do think Haze Palafin as well is another pretty good option as well. Again, Palafin's like biggest issue is you're playing against Electro Shot, which is kind of, annoying. But at the same time, if you get your own Palafin set up in rain, you have the right support, it can also do a lot of work. Another, combo I really like as well, or sorry, not a combo, a particular move, which sadly there's only 2 mons in the format that actually have it, but it's Sacred Sword. So Sacred Sword right now, it's Gallade and Samurott, essentially the only 2 Pokemon running it. But Sacred Sword bypasses the defense boost, and it is always, obviously, it's a fighting type move. It's always super effective into it unless they Terra. Off a Gallade, it does stupid amounts of damage, especially with that 125 attack. And of course, they both have sharpness as well, which obviously helps out a lot. But Hisuian Samurott here as well, I do think is a pretty slept-on Pokemon right now as well. The clear amulet stuff, plus Aqua Cutter, and Sacred Sword, and then Sacred Sword, are pretty good. And of course, Ceaseless Edge being its its signature move, all really, really good. And I do think this is a mon that can function really well as your anti-rain mon, right? Because again, if you set up rain for an Aqua Cutter, this is sharpness boosted, rain boosted, coming off a pretty solid attack stat, especially because a lot of the time you're just gonna run adamant. So yeah, pretty damn solid if you ask me. And then really the last one that I kind of want to touch on here, I guess Pokemon like Ninetales, both Ninetales forms and Torkoal are both decent as well. Also things like Priority, Weather as well, also do pretty good into it. That's things like Whimsicott and Murkrow, both running things like Sunny Day, and Murkrow can run both Sunny Day. I think Murkrow actually because I know you get Sunny Day. Do you get it's not called Hail anymore. What they change it to? It's Snowscape or something? Yeah, okay, he doesn't get Snowscape. But yeah, the ability to change the weather is also really, really good into it. And then I guess as well, the final mon I want to touch on. I guess this also kind of counts for a few different mons, but basically anything that can, eat the water type attacks for free. Gastro is obviously one of the better ones because Storm Drain plus it being a ground type is very good at walling out, what's it called? Archaludon, especially with things like Terra Fairy. It's like a hard wall to it. And then on top of that as well, obviously it has a stab earth power, good for things like Muddy Water as well. I don't think you get Scald, right? Yeah, you don't get Scald. But yeah, you get rain boosted on your Muddy Water, your earth power is super effective into Archaludon. It's really good. And there are other few other Pokemon as well that, can kind of function in a similar role. Technically Tatsugiri gets Storm Drain, but again, I really don't want to be eating Electro Shots or Dracos. Toxicroak's another really interesting option as well into it. Obviously it is weak to the flying type attacks. But it does have dry skin, meaning it can, help eat some of the rain attacks from the other members of these teams. But yeah, that's some of just my favorite counters into the rain stuff right now. So this one here, gonna try and keep it short and sweet. This is just Dondozo-Tatsugiri. This one to me is, it's a little simple, right? Basically, Haze is the best way to deal with it. Free Marina is a fantastic Haze mon. Murkrow with Priority Haze is also really, really good. Again, there are Pokemon like Decidueye that also get Haze. We also see Pokemon like Milotic as well, right? Basically, if you really want a Haze mon, literally just go on Pokemon Showdown, type in Haze, and just look for something that fits your team, right? A lot of the time, I'll do stuff like this where I'll type it, I'll just search by base stat. Palafin's another fantastic option as well. Obviously, Decidueye is great, and Polion if you've got one on your team. Yeah, you can go through the list, right? There's some pretty good ones. Overquiller as well right now is a really good one on rain teams as well. So yeah, a lot of really good options, even Politoed as well, if that's your rain setter. Altaria also pretty solid, the Weezings as well can get it. So, a lot of pretty good options there when it comes to Haze. Another one I really enjoy is Clefable, once again. Basically, the reason I like Clef is because with its ability Unaware, you can essentially just go follow me, and then just keep redirecting it. And a lot of the time, it will likely take, there's a good chance you live 2 wave crashes, right? If you go for something like this with the Bold Nature, there is a really good chance that you're going to live 2 of them. And chances are you're going to be rocking Citrus Berry, or Rocky Helmet anyway. If you have Rocky Helmet, for example, obviously really good into the Mouse-Ape stuff. But also it's hey, you're going to take 2, big, chunks of damage from Wave Crash. You're also going to eat 2 Rocky Helmets on top of that. And then I've also got an ally that's hitting you, right? You're taking at least 2/3 from this. Sorry, 1/3 from this, 2 6s. Yeah, and for me, that's just a really good answer. Thanks to Unaware. And then finally, similar to what we were just saying before, Sacred Sword, once again. I won't go too far into it. Sacred, God, I can't spell. Sacred Sword. Basically, these guys here. Gallade is a really good chance to 2-shot. Obviously, Gallade does prefer being under Trick Room in that matchup. Yeah, Gallade does 50 to 60%. And Hisuian Samurott is another pretty good mon into it as well, right? Thanks to it being a water type, it can eat those wave crashes. And yeah, deal a good 40% to it, which is really good chip as well from the Hisuian Samurott. So the next one here I want to touch on is a bit more broad. This is just the pretty standard Fire, Water, Grass stuff. Normally this consists of Pokemon like Rillaboom, Incineroar, and then whatever water type you want. Pokemon like Palafin and Primarina are both really good on it right now, but this is just your standard balance core, right? And the ways I personally really like to deal with this is like knowing Incineroar is one of the scariest ones in the format. Anything that can really ignore Intimidate without having to hold Clear Amulet's really good. So a lot of the inner focus mons are really good. The main ones that come to my mind are like D-Knight, which is here, and Mian Xiao's another pretty good one. You also have the Scrappy mons as well, which are all kind of picking up right now. Scrappy. Which are the main two, yeah, is Decidueye and Flamigo, both of which, you know, they ignore the Intimidate, thanks to Scrappy, and then they can fire off very powerful fighting type attacks into the Incineroar, dealing massive damage. Of course, Defiant is another pretty common one as well. Defiant, the main guy, is obviously King Gambit, but with, you know, Annihilape as well is also really good. Actually, Annihilape's probably the main guy, I don't know what I'm saying there. But yeah, like Gambit and Ape are like the two main ones. Regular Braviary also is a pretty decent option as well. But yeah, they're all pretty good. Another thing I like is Dragon types. I do think Double Dragon is incredibly good right now, especially because, you know, they kind of stat check everything, right? Like, you have two of these 600 base stat mons, and they're pretty damn good, right? Things like Salamence in Rain is incredibly good into it. Hydreigon is also just like really solid as well with the crit stuff. Garchomp feels bad, man. D-Knight, definitely an underrated mon in my opinion right now. I think the Choice Banded stuff is really good. I think the Assault Vest stuff is also really good. Terraflying Terrablast in the current metagame is pretty damn sick as well. Even things like Choice Banded Dragapult, right? Obviously, Dragapult doesn't love Incineroar because of knockoff. But again, you just go like, you know, for example, I like playing Giraffe, which is one we'll touch on in a second. But yeah, you go like Giraffe, Helping Hand, plus like Terra Dragon, Dragon Darts. And you're going to deal like 60% to the Incineroar. And it feels freaking good, man. Even Baxcalibur on Snow right now is really good. And of course, Archaludon on Rain is kind of insane. But yeah, I do think Dragon types are really good. And then finally as well, Priority Block, right? When you look at a lot of, I fucking Priority, lol. When you look at a lot of these mons here, right? Fake Out, Grassy Glide, Fake Out, Jet Punch, right? They love spamming priority moves. So of course, things like Armor Tail are fantastic in the current metagame, right? Of course, Giraffe is the main user of it. Of course, we also have Pokemon like Serena as well, with Queenly Magistry, and also Broxshish with Dazzling. So these three mons are also pretty damn good into it. I actually do really like Broxshish with Clear Amulet right now. I think it's a little slept on. But yeah, basically, Dazzling plus Clear Amulet means it can just like threaten massive damage into the Incineroars if they aren't careful. So really, really good. But yeah, of course, Giraffe is like the main one with Armor Tail. Just really good at stopping like the fake out stuff, right? And they can't just like pivot, you know, pivot around clicking fake out all the time. You have to force them to click other moves like, you know, Knock Off, Parting Shot, Wood Hammer, all that kind of stuff. Now, this next one here is not really a core, but so much as like just one individual mon. And it's Blood Moon Ursaluna. Now, this mon, I'm not gonna lie, like really doesn't have many answers. This mon, like, honestly, in the current metagame, if it was a little bit faster, I think would be a lot scarier than it currently is. It's still like a top 10 mon, definitely like a top 3 scariest individual mon in the metagame right now. Blood Moon's ability just to click things like Life Orb, Paranormal boosted, you have like a Helping Hand next to it, and then you just click this stupidly strong Blood Moon. You have like a really good Hyper Voice, right? It is also like the best ground type in the format with Earth Power. Makes it really damn scary. And two of the best counters I found to it is one Hydreigon. I talk about this guy all the time, but I think Terrasteel Hydreigon is one of the best matchups into it. The reason for it is Terrasteel gives you a resistance to both Blood Moon and Hyper Voice, and with Levitate, you also have an immunity to Earth Power regardless. So you're able to resist all its attacks. If you run things like Assault Vest, you can always live to 2 Blood Moons. You have options like Snarl as well. If you're in a position when you're faster, you've also got things like Dark Pulse to deal pretty good damage with a chance to flinch. You also have Draco Meteor to deal a lot of damage to this Pokemon. Considering it's a pretty poor special defense mon, especially too if you are running things like the Focus Energy. I always type that in there. If you're running like things like Focus Energy plus Scope Lens, right, you can get the you get the crits going. You just start critting your Draco Meteors on it, and you're gonna one shot it. Pretty damn good because of that. And then the other option here, and I think this is probably the biggest issue Blood Moon has right now, is Rain is just so damn good. Pelipper's like really good into it with Weather Ball, Hurricane, and a big one too right now is Basculegion. This Pokemon's ability to just go like Banded Wave Crash in the rain into it is kind of just absurd. I really think that is kind of what's holding Ursaluna back from being the most used Pokemon in the format. But look, as things develop and people kind of figure out ways into rain right now, I do think we will see Ursaluna rise up. Especially too, because I've personally been using a lot of Electabuzz into rain, and I think Electabuzz is fantastic into rain. Guess what happens if Electabuzz gets good? Ursaluna gets even better. Same thing goes for Pokemon like Jolteon, right? If we start seeing the rise of Pokemon like Jolteon, any other, strong electric types like the Rotoms as well, Ursaluna inherently does just get a bit better. So the next core I want to talk about here is Psy Spam. Now, I could type in, all of the mons here that like to play with Psy Spam, but really Indeedee plus Hat are like the two main ones, at least on the Trick Room variant. Obviously, there are things as well like Braviary, Hisui, which are also pretty good onto it. These teams tend to run a lot of like Gallade as well. Blood Moon Ursaluna also slots in really nicely on these teams as well. So a lot of really good mons that do like to play with this core. And the ways I'd like to answer it are pretty simple. For me, the most simplest way to have a really good matchup into Side Spam is just Rillaboom. Just have grassy terrain. You just like lead something into these two that can like potentially pivot, whether that be like U-turn or whatever. And you just pivot out, you know, you just like U-turn into your Rillaboom, even hard switch if you have to, right? Basically to say, hey, you can have your Trick Room this turn, but next turn I'm going to have terrain and I'm also going to have Fake Out support. Really, really good. Another combo, sorry, I won't get into the next thing, the combo part yet, but Golden Go is also really good into these cores as well. The only thing that they can really lead into Golden Go lead, and normally things like Torkoal and Blood Moon Ursaluna, even then Blood Moon Ursaluna is like kind of forced to protect turn one. Like Blood Moon Ursaluna can't eat a Terra Steel, make it rain. And Torkoal is in a pretty similar spot. Like, yeah, Torkoal could eat it and fire back like a Weather Ball or a Heat Wave, but realistically, you're doing, you know, 40-50% minimum to a Torkoal, and at that point, it can't click Eruption anymore. And you're also not threatening the Golden Go's partner, right? As long as you lead something strong next to the Golden Go that isn't also scared, like a, you know, a strong Dark type, for example, which is what we'll get into in a second. Yeah, it does make leading into Side Spam much easier in my opinion, especially too because Pokemon like Gallade can't just freely, you know, Sacred Sword. I've actually even seen people running like Knight/Gallade, just to have a way to hit Golden Go on lead. But yeah, I think Goldango is definitely one of the better options. And then, of course, finally, just the Dark types, right? There are a few really good Dark types right now. Pokemon like King Gambit, Tyranitar, Hydreigon are all really good. Of course, Incineroar, Meowscarada are both really solid as well. As I said before, I'm a huge believer in Hisui and Samurott. I also think that one's pretty good. Overquill on Rain is another fantastic option as well. So yeah, there are a lot of good Dark types. Normally, like, if you think your Side Spam matchup is bad, have like either Rilla Gold, which is just, again, a fantastic combination together, or like Golden Go on a Dark type, and you're probably going to be fine. And the final one here that I've left till the end intentionally because it's my favorite way to play the game is just basically Tailwind Hyper Offense, right? You're seeing a lot of Pokemon right now like Talonflame, right? We're seeing Whimsicott. Apparently I'm not typing. Whimsicott and Murkrow. These guys right now are like your three premier Tailwind setters. And the scariest thing for these guys is basically having an opposing lead that puts on more pressure than what you have right now, right? And again, we've looked at a lot of the common combos, right? You know, again, I showcased the team yesterday running Hyper Offensive Tailwind. You can jump on, you know, Limitless VGC and have a look at some of the combos. But right now, what do these three Pokemon have in particular, in my opinion at least? Basically, there are two Pokemon in particular that I should say three, sorry. There are three Pokemon in particular I love into these three. One, because they put a lot of pressure on the Tailwind setter and you're able to remove them turn one. But two, they're also just really good into the mirrors. And those Pokemon are Hisuian Arcanine. We have My Goat, Glamora. And finally, Choice Banded Dragonite. So, for example, the scariest combo right now in the game, in my opinion, is probably Tailwind plus Choice Specs Golden Go. If you do not have an answer to just Tailwind plus Terra Steel Choice Specs Golden Go, things are going to be really rough. And right now, Choice Banded Hisuian Arcanine with Flare Blitz is just like, hey, I'm faster. You know, you're going to run faster than it, right? You're going to go jolly max speed because you are like 6 points faster than Golden Go. Golden Go hits 149. It's base 84. So because of that, you're going to say, hey, I'm jolly. I'm just going to nuke you if you Terra Steel, right? Glamora, it doesn't necessarily have the same ability to just straight up nuke Goldango. But you can put a lot of pressure on turn one, and you also pressure a lot of the Tailwind setters in particular. That's something else I didn't mention here. Like Flare Blitz will one-tap the Whimsicott. Rock Slide will one-tap the Talonflame while also putting a lot of pressure on its the other guy. And finally, Murkrow just gets like bopped by Head Smash. I've even seen people a lot these days like dropping Intimidate and opting for Rockhead as well, so that they don't have like any recoil on like Flare Blitz and Head Smash, which is pretty good. And of course, Extreme Speed as a final option is like always really good on these teams as well. Glamora has two different sets. When I use it as a like anti-Tailwind lead, I like running Sash so that way you don't just get bopped by Goldango. And it also allows you to run Max because this Pokemon is 2 points faster than Goldango. So you've got like the Focus Sash stuff. You just got like Spiky Shield, right? And then you just basically go like your stabs. Or you go like Sludge Bomb. You go Power Gem. And then you round it out with Earth Power as well, so you can put pressure on Goldango. Also, there's the Power Herb set, right? Which is there's the Power Herb stuff, which is basically the exact same, except you drop like this for Meteor Beam, right? And Meteor Beam, I think, is better when like this isn't your answer into the mirror. It's just, yeah, it puts on a lot of pressure, right? You go for things like Terra Grass and whatnot, and yeah, you just get like that 3+1 on turn one, and you're an absolute nuke. Again, Meteor Beam's gonna bop Murkrow, it's gonna bop Talonflame, and Sludge Bomb's gonna bop the Whimsicott. And then finally, my guy D-Knight here. D-Knight on these teams in particular, like, again, I think the Assault Vest set is better than the Banded set right now. But if you look at the damage that Choice Banded Terra Normal E-Speed does, like, it's still really good. Like, I seriously think this mon is the reason Talonflames can't run Terra Flying. I see people play on, like, in, like, ladder and, like, in tours and stuff like that, and they go, like, Terra Flying Talonflames. Like, don't, man. You run into the run guy, like, running Banded D-Knight, he's gonna end your game. Like, you just not, like, especially if you're offensive Talonflame, you're not living a Choice Banded D-Knight. Like, it's gonna one-tap you. Like, I'm pretty sure if you're, like, 4 HP, 4 defense, you're dying to 15 of the 16 rolls. At that stage, it's not worth it. Same goes for Murkrow. If, like, even, like, bulky Murkrow takes, like, minimum 80% from a Choice Banded D90 speed, which is absolutely insane. Same with Whimsicott. If Whimsicott's not Sash, it better be, like, Terra Rock or, like, super bulky. It's just getting bopped. And again, I think D-Knight is, like, probably the most slept on Pokemon in the format right now. I think it is so damn good, and no one's fucking playing it. But, again, I'm sure we'll see D-Knight rise up in the future again. But yeah, guys, anyway, that's just, I guess, some of the counters to some of the best cores, you know, at least in my opinion in the game right now. I guess let me know down below as well if you guys think there's any cores I missed out on, you know, if there's other cores you want me to talk about. Maybe if there's some counters you guys think I forgot about, let me know down below. I'm always, you know, I'm always down there in the comment section. I try to reply to every single comment if I can. And yeah, just let me know what you guys think. I'm super interested to hear what you guys have to say. And yeah, let me know if I missed anything. Yeah, it's going to be it for this one, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.